Hey, what's going on, guys? So, Crimson Desert just went through a pretty active stretch, and I mean active in the best and most practical way possible. We got three updates in 1 week, and that is the kind of pace that usually tells you the devs are not just sitting back and letting issues pile up. They pushed out the main update first and then followed it up with two hotfixes right after, which is always nice to see because it means they are actually watching what players run into once the patch goes live. The big one is easily the most packed of the three. This is the update that brought in outdoor house decoration. And that alone is a pretty big deal if you are the kind of player who likes spending time making your space feel lived in instead of just functional. It is not just one or two little cosmetic pieces either. They added a full set of new house items from facilities and lights to decorations, pet furniture, and all kinds of extras that give people a lot more freedom to mess around with their home setup. And on top of that, they introduced two new crafting tools. So there is clearly more going on behind the scenes than just a few cosmetic touches. What makes this update feel even bigger is that it did not stop at furniture and house stuff. There were new equipment pieces added for Cliff, a new pair of gloves for Damian, and a new accessory for everyone. That means players who care about builds and gear progression got something real out of it too, not just decorators. They also added the Box of Fortune to the Mysterious Shop, which is the kind of thing that immediately makes people curious. Because anytime a new shop item shows up for a low silver price, players are going to test it out and see whether it is worth the buy. There were also quality of life changes in the same patch, like a smoother loading experience and better behavior in a bunch of different areas. Some of the changes are the kind you do not notice right away unless something was broken before, like fixes for controls, combat flow, UI clarity, and a lot of weird edge cases that can really bother people once they show up. That includes things like better handling while aiming, cleaner control input behavior, improved display in the collectibles chest, and a bunch of bug fixes across combat, graphics, quests, and world interactions. A lot of players do not always give these fixes much credit because they are not flashy, but they matter. They make the game feel steadier and less annoying to live in moment to moment. Then the first hotfix landed the next day, Densely, and that one was much smaller but still important. It took care of a few annoying problems that were showing up after the main update, including outdoor furniture disappearing in certain situations. That kind of bug is exactly the sort of thing that would frustrate players who were just starting to enjoy the new housing feature. It also fixed issues with climbing onto moving objects, glass lighting looking strange, floating terrain on the path to the Sanctum of Faith, and Skunky disappearing after being placed in camp. So this was basically the cleanup pass. Nothing huge, but the sort of patch that says, yeah, we saw the problems and we are already fixing them. The third update came a few days later, and this one was all about stability and crash fixes. It handled a nasty issue where the game could crash frequently at 1080p on AMD RX 5000 series cards, which is the kind of thing that can completely ruin a play session if you are affected by it. It also fixed a crash tied to photo mode after turning HDR off, which is one of those very specific bugs that still matters a lot because photo mode is something a lot of players love messing with. And finally, it corrected a problem where some ocean areas were being marked as no fishing zones when they should not have been. That is a smaller fix compared to the crash stuff, but it still affects regular play in a way people would notice right away. So when you step back and look at all three together, the pattern is pretty clear. The first update was the big feature drop with new decoration options, new gear, new crafting tools, and a long list of systems improvements. The two hot fixes after that were focused on cleaning up the rough edges, fixing bugs, and making sure the new content actually works the way it should. And that is probably the best way to handle a week like this. Big feature update first, then quick follow ups to smooth out the problems before they become a bigger headache for everyone. What stands out most to me is how much of this feels player focused. They did not just throw in one new toy and call it a day. They expanded housing, added new items, improved the load flow, touched combat and controls, and then moved fast on the hotfixes. That is the kind of update cycle that keeps a game feeling alive without making everything feel chaotic. It gives players something new to mess with while also showing that the rough stuff is getting attention right away. All in all, three updates in 1 week is a pretty strong sign that the team is actively tuning the game and trying to keep the experience moving in the right direction. The big patch gave players more to do. The first hotfix handled the immediate housing and environment issues, and the second hotfix made sure crashes and platform problems got attention fast. That is a solid run of support, and it definitely makes this one of those weeks worth paying attention to.